Following this, if you could draw to a close. What I'd like to do is to go around each of the tables, and we will be quite strict on the time, just so we've got a sensible finish as well. So if I ask a nominated person from each table, we're going to go through each of the tables. We'll give you 3 minutes, and if you just give a general impression of your top 3 design constraints and top 3 design ideas, and then we'll give us an idea of kind of the ideas that come through in the room today. So if we start with table number 1, I'm not sure how you put in the mic, so you might have to just be a loudspeaker, I think. But if you give us your top 3, it'll be much appreciated. Design, well, let's start with design ideas, let's get positive, and then we've got time to give design concerns on that as well. Thanks.
Okay. No, not especially. Could we make it so that each speaker from each table comes down to you?
Okay, yeah, actually, that's a good idea, yeah.
You can hear me without one, but not everyone's as loud as that.
Hi, can you hear me now? Great. So we started with the original idea of what was, because we talked about this boulevard approach of trees going down both sides. If we throw those in, right from starting Mitcham's corner in, what are the implications of that? So we've essentially said, one of our top design ideas, we'd like to keep that trees on both sides, and what is the cost to the rest of the cross-section by putting in what might be as narrow as 1 metre strips on each side, in terms of restricting both the pavement area and the bike lane area. So that's the top design idea which we want it to be. That's the assumed thing, anything pushed back from that. So the at Union Lane, where buses are coming down Milton Road into town, maybe we should repeat the same idea of having a bus gate so that buses can get past the Arbury Road Union Lane intersection and know if that bus stop is further away, so it's not opposite the shops, they can get a straight run through and they're not blocking that whole intersection there, and then we can get rid of the double bus lane that's right outside the shops, because we've got a lot of congestion going on there. From a meta point of view, I think the City Deal have failed to think about those shops at all. There's a potential for developing those shops and the shop frontage way more than they've even considered, because there's all those entrances of cars trying to get into each individual car park. Why are they doing that? I don't know. That should go. And then we just talk a bit about sustainable drainage in the verges and the trees, so that we don't have the endless puddles that are growing in various places all down Milton Road the moment there's any rain at all. You want to go on to our 3 design concerns as well quickly? So where the children's run happens between Highworth Avenue and Asham Road, which is leading to Milton Road and partly the Chesterton School area. That is, at peak periods, is very, very crowded. There are a huge number of bikes, push prams and bikes with kids on the front. That is the most congested area for pavement and bike. And we think we should try and get them 4.5 metres there. We can hopefully squeeze a bit more, and that might mean we lose some of the trees on the far side. But that side is critical. That's where the safety concerns are from our perspective. Yes, so is there, I know we're told that we're going to look at this, but I think it's fundamental. Why have we got the bus lane from the Highworth Avenue roundabout down to Hurst Park and beyond? That lane is never used, and that is constraining what we can do on the pavement on the other side for the huge amount of pedestrians are there. That bus lane is useless. It's never used. It won't be used now. It's contrary to the actual requirements, which is we have 1 bus lane going up, depending on which side of the road it is. There's a slight concern about street furniture, including things like manhole covers and all that. Are those in bus lanes? Are they going to be chaotic? So that is our 3rd design concern.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. If we leave the plan, that's all right. If you leave the ideas with us. There we go. Let's go to table number 2, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got a slightly different direction here. We were told to use the top 3 design ideas for the first bit, which was about allocation of the available space, and the bottom three concerns for the major crossings. And I think that what we just listened to is a much more useful. I'll tell you what we wrote. And we wrote it on the assumption that the bus lane shown southbound between Elizabeth Way and Asham Road will not be imposed. I think that's we told at the start. So, the first bit, which was how to share out the available space. We had 3 points: segregation of cycle and footpaths to be indicative of priorities and not prohibitive. The boundary between them may be crossed if conditions allow, widths to be as space allows, rather than magic figures. Secondly, no trees or verges to be sacrificed in the interests of bus lanes or cycle paths. And thirdly, the cycle and footpath between Asham Road and Highworth Avenue to be segregated, not shared. Clear enough? Then when we get on to the major junctions, which is what we've just done now, Union Lane should remain open as now, because the disbenefits of closure far outweigh any benefits. What happens here has a major impact on the shops and traffic flow in front of them. The Elizabeth Way roundabout to be retained but reduced in size. Highworth Avenue to remain open. A 2-way cycle path and footpath to be retained along the northwest side, that's the Highworth Avenue side, the roundabout. And a clear cycle path to be set out for inbound cyclists, that's coming across the other side. Peak time traffic lights to be installed there to assist cycle and pedestrian crossing of Milton Road and Elizabeth Way. So that's what we set out, slightly different approach to what we do.
Thank you. Excellent time. Can we have table number 3, please? Well, yeah, we'll get in touch. We can't read any of the writing.
Right. Our big idea that we should restrict exit from Milton Road to buses only at Mitcham's Corner and route all other through traffic via Elizabeth Way. Then that would give only local traffic mostly going down most of that section of Milton's Road, but you would need to create a turning circle at Mitcham's Corner for delivery vehicles because it is a busy area. That at the bottom end of Milton Road, we're very concerned that the shared cycle path, there should be a shared cycle path and pedestrian route by the shops, and that the bus stop should actually have bus shelter adjacent the bus lane, if there is to be a bus lane, so that people wanting to catch a bus don't have to cross footpaths and cycle paths, which is actually dangerous. Their big idea dealt with Union Lane Junction. Southbound bus stop at Union Lane, not to be moved where they're suggesting, which just moves the traffic jam slightly further down the road, but actually moved back to the EV side of the junction. Keep Union Lane open as the only alternative access to East Chesterton, and consider the area in front of the shops as being part of a public square with through traffic being accommodated. This suggestion has been made for part of Mill Road. Hasn't been taken up so far, but it's a possibility. Because during the day, there actually isn't a problem in Milton Road. Something the traffic engineers really must get their heads around. We are concerned about conflict between vehicles and cyclists, particularly where there are parking adjacent shops. So there needs to be, again, careful planning, and where you've got the shops at the bottom end of Milton Road, if that is sort of to be followed as it is now, then the parking area should be adjacent to the bus lane, with the cycle and footpaths taken between the parking area and the shops. That would be safer for everybody. There was also a concern that Asham Road and Gurney Lane being a ramp run, and the need to stop cars cutting between Gilbert Road through Asham Road in school drop-off pickup. Allow parking for drop-off along Milton Road rather than in Asham Road or the church. And we also question, is there really any need for dedicated bus lanes?
Andy said yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think Andy said yes about that, but I'm not sure. If we can have table number 4, please.
We mostly talked about cycling, we talked a bit about bus lanes and cars too, but mostly cycling. So design ideas were, the first one was you need to continue the cycle and pedestrian traffic over junctions with priority. You need to continue the sort of pedestrian and cycle traffic that goes over junctions with clear priorities, so that it's sort of indicated in the circuits and maybe the signage as well, so that it's clear that those users can sort of get across it here rather than run over. The second design idea was to move the two-can crossing away from the junction bit. That's the one next to National Road. So just 2 or 3 metres away, so that it's not so close to the junction. And the third one was using trees as segregation between different users, like pedestrians or cyclists. The design concern, and finally on that, there was another conversation about trees on Milton Road, and a sort of wide-ranging discussion about whether cherry trees were the right trees, having sort of pretty sort of a pretty time of year of the weeks or something, or whether a green tree all year round be nicer or not, and whether trees actually planted in rubber boxes, trees in hard landscapes would grow better or not. So that was a discussion we had. We didn't come to any particular conclusion on that. On design concerns, we had a discussion about conflict with shared use cycling and segregated one-way cycling. Particularly, the group was informed by several people who were associated with schools, with Milton Road School, and getting families and children to school safely over those spaces. And there was also a bit of discussion about where people cycled and why they cycled and whether they could or couldn't legally cycle, so whether children should be cycling on pavement okay, or whether they'd be tooled off, and if they needed to be cycling on shared use, if that's better. And if shared use was then not suitable for cyclists who were maybe cycling to and from work, going a bit faster and so on, and if those cyclists would then go into the road because they wouldn't use the shared use, and that would then conflict maybe with car users or bus users. Secondly, in terms of design concerns, we had a concern whether the bus lane was wide enough at 3 metres. I know at the moment the bus lane on Milton Road is not wide enough, and I know that Andy Campbell has said that the bus lane should be 3.5 metres. The bus lane shown here were 3 metres, and we didn't really come to any conclusion on that, but we just put that question there, are they wide enough? And I suppose the basis of that is on the fact that we were talking about 2 bus lanes and cut down to 1 bus lane, so it's important, I suppose, that that 1 bus lane does work well. And finally, our third concern is parking for shops. So it is a real conflict area around that. As someone said earlier about how you're going to park in front of shops there with the bus stop and everything. And in fact, laterally we did have a point made that maybe the bus stop could be moved further up Milton Road and out of town, just across the junction, and that would best get out of the way. As it's only, the bus stop doesn't be used very much. And what was the final thing? I've said that already, so the bus concerned about the bus lanes. That's it.
They're on 5.
Thank you. Hi, we talked about having separated cycle lanes with trees. Protected by trees would be nice to keep away from the motor traffic. We want, and also separated from the footpaths so that people cycling have a separate space from people walking around. We're all protected from motor vehicles, and that the walking and cycling infrastructure should be safe for everybody of all ages and abilities, and families, older people, younger people. That's our goal. And to get that space, we suggest pretty much cutting back most of the bus lanes But maybe if there might be some use for it at maybe the last 50 meters before the junction, what I call a Q-jump lane. But in any case, the point is that the bus lanes take up way too much space, and most of the effect can be had for probably 5 or 10% of the cost. And another thing you can do is use non-destructive bus priority measures. Non-destructive bus priority measures mean you don't have to, widen the bus lanes. You can use things like smart fare payment, multiple doors on buses. That would be amazing, just like they do in most other cities. Having a step-free boarding into buses so that the bus platforms are actually built, well, actually like tram platforms, basically. You make buses behave more like trams, and then you don't need all this extra space for bus lanes. The other design idea we had was safer and more crossings. So walking and cycling priority at side road junctions, have that actually be physically shown so that people walking along Milton Road and cycling around don't get hit by turning traffic, basically, which unfortunately is all too common currently. For the top 3 design concerns, well, I kind of already said this, but said there's too many bus lanes, too much bus lane, and instead we should have more trees, better cycle lanes, and better footpaths. And I'm sure we can think of a few more ideas with that space. In terms of the roundabout, well, there's some thought of maybe not turning that into a signalized junction, but if we do keep the roundabout, then we should use the safer roundabout design with walking and cycling priority over the arms. I know we're starting to think about that for Queen Edith's Way, and it should be considered here as well if you don't go to the signalized junction. And finally, the shared use of footpaths is still being proposed in certain parts, and we believe that you can have a 2-way cycle lane that's good for, I mean, there's a lot of users on the school side, and that's absolutely something that should be accommodated. So have a separate 2-way cycle lane so that they don't conflict with people walking. Thank you.
Thanks. I can write to table number 6, please. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a lively and robust discussion. But we agreed that we need to make space for birches and trees on both sides of Milton Road for the whole length, and that these can vary in width from a ½ metre where the road measure, the highway measure is limited, up to 2 metres wide where that is also a possibility. We also discussed at some length whether to have segregated cycle and pedestrian use or whether it be integrated. We agreed that for the west side of Milton Road, that's going from Gilbert Road upward to Elizabeth Way, it could be shared pedestrian and cycle use because it's a priority for the primary school that parents have easy access with rather cumbersome buggies which don't lend themselves to a segregated pedestrian and cycle way. And it just means people have to be nice to each other, give each other room. Our third design idea was concerned Elizabeth Way, Highway Avenue roundabout, and we feel that that should be a modified roundabout so that some space could be taken off the actual green area. And again, we had a discussion about whether it should be signalised or not. But we could incorporate something called a Dutch-style cycle roundabout, which I have to say I don't fully understand, but we could, which would then give cyclists safe access completely around that area. That area would allow sufficient space for continuous, but by modifying it in that way, there would be, it would reduce the amount of traffic jam that there is with the traffic confluence from Elizabeth Way onto Milton Road. But we felt it was really important to maintain open access to Highworth Avenue, as blocking that off will create quite a problem for people living First Park Avenue area, and it adds to extra driving that's unnecessary. Our top 3 design concerns is the refusal to remove the bus lane from the southern section of Mitcham Road. Like so many others, we query the need to have a bus lane if there is smart technology applied, which I won't go into again. Other people have talked about better buses, better signalling, better access. Our second design concern was the Elizabeth Way Highwood Avenue, which was to keep, rather than the modified version that we were shown, was to keep the roundabout, and that actually refers back to the point that we made on design ideas. Our third design concern, where we couldn't really quite agree, was rather than block off Union Lane, to possibly have peak hour closure only, if that's really necessary, or, as an alternative idea, to make sure that if it has to be blocked off, to have emergency vehicle access to Union Lane. It has a health centre there, and it's crazy to drive all the traffic down to the high street. So that's it.
And last but not least, Terry Wilson. Please, yeah. Hang right in, please.
Thank you. Rather like Charles's statement at the beginning of this meeting, as Vice Chair of the Assembly, one of those that will have to make recommendations to the City Deal Board. I do this without prejudice. These are as a result of the discussions around the table. So, the top 3 design ideas. The first one was to suggest removing the inbound bus lane between Elizabeth Way and George Street, and we'd like to see that replaced, or the table would like to see that replaced with verges and trees.
And that goes with Andy Campbell's approval, who was on the table.
And that goes with Andy Campbell's approval. And apparently he wants 4 metres for bus lanes now. We're just going to see how big we can get the bus lanes throughout. No, he doesn't really. And of course this is all based on the map. So the outbound bus lane from Albury Road to Elizabeth Way we think is okay and should be there. But we shouldn't have the bus lane inbound on that same stretch between Albury Road and Elizabeth Way. It was felt that, like several people have already said, that the Elizabeth Way roundabout should be retained but reduced in size and to keep access and egress from Highworth Avenue. Top 3 design concerns were the shared bus stop, which seems to be opposite the junction with the Westbrook Centre, and it was felt that that was probably not the best place for it. We're reliably informed it would be difficult to get a lot of large traffic out around there and be able to turn, so we thought that was in a poor place and probably needed putting somewhere else. Like a lot of people have already said, for design concern 2, the closure of Union Lane, it was felt was wrong, and it should be kept open because the benefits of closure for that are not enough to compensate the residents living in Union Lane. And design concern 3 are the bus stops on either side of the road between Union Lane and Elizabeth Way. We think they need sort of really looking at. I can't remember what we decided they should do, but look at them.
We said that the bus stop should be retained in a lay-by so it didn't block the carriageway.
Did we hear that? Retained in a lay-by so it didn't block the carriageway. And that will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great feedback, thank you, very appreciated. Hope you see this, obviously got some consensus there and some differing opinions I'm sure you've experienced on the table, so a little insight into the difficulty of our build, bringing that all together. But that's what we're doing. Going forward, if I could ask the facilitators on the table, if you could just make sure that any other plans that were scribbled on, that we have any ideas on, were captured together. So there's a lot of paper there, so we just want to make sure that anything you've edited or written on is captured. And any notes that facilitators have taken would be useful to have any of those as well. I hope you found that a rewarding session. Thank you very much for your time and coming out this evening to help us, and we look forward to seeing you for the second half of the operation. Thank you for bearing with us. Obviously, it's the introductory process of getting these sessions working well, and we look forward to improve something on the next one.
I'd just like to say thank you very much too to everybody for coming and participating and for doing so well in circumstances where I know there is quite a lot of angst about what's happening. But it was a fantastic evening, and just to see each table working away so diligently and enthusiastically was fantastic. So look forward to seeing you at the next workshop. Thank you.